Hey everyone, and welcome. So if you're planning that big move to India, this explainer is absolutely for you. We're going to unpack all the official rules for bringing your personal belongings home, and this is the best part, how you might be able to do it completely duty-free.
You know that feeling, right? You look around your home at all the stuff you've collected over the years, and the thought of shipping it all just feels overwhelming, especially when you think about those customs fees. But what if I told you there's a way to bring most of it back without paying all that duty? Yep, it's totally possible, and we're about to show you exactly how. Okay, let's dive right in. First, we'll get clear on what unaccompanied baggage actually is. Then, we'll get into the really good stuff, the transfer of residence provision, and just how much you can bring back without paying duty. We'll also cover the super important list of things you can't bring, and we'll wrap up with the timing rules you absolutely need to know.
All right, first things first, let's define this key term. You've probably heard of shipping things separately from your flight, but what does that officially mean when it comes to Indian customs?
So under India's baggage rules from 2016, this is what they call unaccompanied baggage. And it's really simple. It's all your personal stuff that isn't in the suitcase you check at the airport. You know, the boxes you ship by sea or by air. Now, the key thing to remember is that even though it travels on its own, it's still considered your baggage. And it has to follow some very specific rules to get those duty-free perks.
Now let's talk about a huge perk. If you're actually moving back to India for good after living abroad, the government has a special rule just for you. It's officially called transfer of residence, but you'll hear people call it TR for short.
This is the one you really want to pay attention to, Rule 6. This is what lets you bring back your used personal items and household goods without getting hit by heavy customs duties. And just to be clear, this is for people who are genuinely relocating back to India, not just for a short visit.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question everybody asks. How much can you actually bring back duty-free? Let's take a look at the numbers.
Now, what's really interesting here is how the whole system is set up. Basically, the longer you've been living abroad, the bigger your duty-free allowance. As you can see, it's a sliding scale that really benefits people who have been away for a longer period of time.
So, for a shorter stay, say somewhere between 3 and 6 months, that allowance is 60,000 rupees.
If you've been living abroad for 6 months up to a full year, that number bumps up to 1 lakh rupees.
And here's the big one. For those who've been away for at least 2 years, that allowance skyrockets to 5 lakh rupees. Now, there are a couple of small conditions here. This has to be for the 2 years immediately before you move, and any short trips you took back to India during that time can't add up to more than 6 months.
So, you know your duty-free limit. Awesome. But does that mean you can just pack up everything, including the kitchen sink? Well, not so fast. The rules are pretty specific about what actually counts towards that transfer of residence allowance.
Let's start with the good news, the fun stuff, all the things you can include. The rules have a handy list called Annexure 3, and it details a lot of the common household items you can pack in your duty-free shipment. This is super helpful for planning.
And as you can see, this covers a lot of the big things. Your laptop, your washing machine, microwave, even an AC unit, they're all on the list. But do notice that little detail for refrigerators. It's totally allowed, but only as long as it's 300 liters or smaller. That's a key detail.
Okay, now for the part you really need to pay attention to. It's so important to understand what you can't bring, or at least what has really strict limits. For this, the baggage rules have 2 other lists. Annexure I for things that are generally restricted, and Annexure 2 for stuff that's specifically excluded from the transfer of residence freebie.
Let's break this down, because there's a difference. The items in Annexure I, like alcohol and cigarettes, have strict limits. Anything over 2 liters of liquor, you're going to pay tax on it. And notice, flat panel TVs are on this list. Then you have Annexure 2. These are things you can bring, but they are not included in your duty-free TR allowance. Things like that big fridge over 300 liters or a home theater system. You just have to pay the standard customs duty on them.
Finally, let's talk timing. This is one of those practical details that can really trip people up if you're not careful. You can't just ship your stuff whenever you feel like it. You've got to follow a pretty strict schedule to qualify for that duty-free allowance.
So this right here breaks down the timeline from Rule 8. You have to ship your unaccompanied baggage within 1 month of you landing in India, or you can send it ahead of time, and it's allowed to arrive up to 2 months before you do. And here's some good news. If something crazy happens that's out of your control, like a sudden illness or a massive travel delay, customs officials do have the power to grant you an extension.
And just to show you how specific this is, here's the actual wording right from the rulebook.
It clearly says the baggage had to be in your possession while you were abroad and has to be sent out within that 1-month window of your arrival. Trust me, customs officers follow this rule very closely, so it's really important to plan your shipping schedule around it.
So, there you have it. That's the breakdown of the rules for your unaccompanied baggage. We've gone through the transfer of residence allowance, the lists of what you can and can't include, and those critical timelines you have to follow. Honestly, understanding these rules is the absolute key to making your move smoother and way more affordable. So now, are you ready to plan your move with confidence?